I feel like I should start by saying, "Oh, Canada, our home and native land," since we were just talking about that. And I could even go, in French, but I won't do that whole thing. But welcome, Cathy.
Thank you.
Thanks, first of all, for participating in our Leaders Who Care series, which is really about that you can be a leader who cares and actually do better for business, for talent, and for your community. They're not separate. And we're so excited that this keeps growing because we can recognize leaders who care from all over the place, but it becomes maybe a mindset, hopefully, of that caring is a good thing to do. It's not like a wussy, mushy thing to do. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And then we'll move to the word love. That'll really knock them off their socks. So great place to start. If you could just give a little bit of an introduction of yourself, a tiny bit of your background, and then let's chat.
All right, lovely. Thanks, Mark. So my name's Cathy. I'm the President and Chief Operations Officer at WorldTree. And although we are a global company, so I am based in Canada, although you can tell from my accent, I'm actually English in origin. I've lived in North America for 20 years and completely failed to lose my accent. And we have team members across the United States, across Latin America. We're the largest grower of a tree called the Empress tree in North and Latin America. It's the fastest growing tree in the world. Beautiful, sustainable source of timber. And we're working with farmers. We have 150 farmers we work with across all those regions. And I have the privilege of being the person who gets to oversee those operations.
So, and you actually started your education was in, I forgot what, philosophy, right? Yeah, philosophy.
Actually, I have a PhD in anthropology, and my actual research thesis was on the origins and evolution of cooperation. So it's not really the origins of caring, although it's obviously related. But basically, where I started was looking at, given we're in a world where there's competition, we're competing for resources, we're competing for, as human beings for money and for mates and for shelter and all the things that make life work, right? Which is, similar to a chimpanzee or any other primate. Given all of those factors, yet we are also really great at working together. And so I was interested to know, how do we foster more cooperative, collaborative relationships? And that's kind of where I started with my PhD over 20 years ago now.
No, that's fantastic. I always find collaboration is interesting because I'll see people, and we love to collaborate in what we do too. And we do a lot of it. And part of it is SDG 17, which is partnerships.
Exactly.
But every so often I hear, yeah, we should definitely collaborate. Let's collaborate. I'll lead. But let's collaborate. It's always fascinating to me. As long as I lead, we're collaborating.
That's right.
I mean,
yeah, we still have a lot of that going on.
I mean, even if you think that, maybe wait a little bit in the collaboration and earn the lead or something like that. I don't know, but I find it very funny. And to your point, competition is good. Sports leagues, I compare a lot of things to sports. Sports leagues, the value of the championship you might win depends on the value of the league. Otherwise, your championship that you won is not very valuable if the league sucks and you win all the trades, screwing the other teams in the trades or stuff like that. So same thing as collaboration. Everybody's got to win.
Yeah.
So did you?
Which is in a sports analogy is not always possible to set up.
Yeah.
I mean, sports is kind of designed so there's winners and losers, and the actual matches. And very often in human systems, it's possible to operate as for me to win, you have to lose, right? So, and a lot of our dynamics are set up around that. And it's a win-lose strategy in the end has everyone pushed to have worse outcomes. So when you're not in sports, when you're in life, and you're actually wanting a world where everyone can win, you have to set up the rules that, I mean, basically we'll play to win whatever the rules of the game are.
Yeah.
But we have to set up the rules of the game of society and life to favor cooperation, if that's the kind of society that we value.
And we do. And we call that omni-wins, that fifth element.
Uh-huh.
So it's everybody that's involved in a project, whatever it is, wins in some way that's beneficial to them. So I definitely agree with you. So I always wanted to ask you this question when I first met you. Did you climb trees as a young girl?
It's funny. I enjoy having my hands in I like being dirty. Like, and by that I mean like covered in earth. I mean, like covered in earth or covered in paint or doing something where, you know, hopefully I look like, you know, relatively well groomed right now. This is like my day wear. But, you know, come the evening time, I'll be, you know, out in my garden. I'll be doing something, and I'll come out in the end of the evening and I'm just like, you know, covered in weeds or what. When I was a girl, so I would love to play in the woodlands and the forests, and you know, I was lucky where I lived. You literally, you know, my parents could open the door. We would go out in the morning, and we'd come back when, you know, either when it got dark or when we were called in for our supper. Not much of a tree climber though, because I'm very risk averse.
Well, you don't have to climb that high.
Falling out of trees, airplanes, bungee jumping, not my thing. Yeah.
So a bush, then you can climb a bush.
Yes, that's right.
So we're starting getting to some of the other answers here, but I'd love to ask this, the why, the purpose, or whatnot. But I ask it a different way. Like, why do you do what you do?
So that was my, you know, sort of my, you know, origin was this PhD on the evolution of cooperation. And then, and I, you know, when I was, even by when I was, you know, 20, early 20s, I still have like a certain amount of, you know, idealism. And then kind of life happened, and, you know, this was like way back in the 90s, and the life happens. I come to Canada in 2001, and I did what all the smart young people were doing then, which was started a software company, just like completely different, .com. And how hard can it be? Doesn't matter. I've got no experience in business. Like, let's do it. And through a certain amount of combination of smart and luck and creativity, we were successful with that business, sold the business in 2012. And that was, and at that time, my husband, who I'd created the business with, he's called Madhu, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so it was a real time of like, hold on a minute, what happened to the 20-year-old that wanted to save the world? What happened to that idealism, if you like, or that desire? And so we sold our company. We made a lot of changes because we wanted him to have time to recover. He's now beaten cancer not once but twice. He's doing great. He's fabulous. He was like,
awesome.
Just so that's not in the space.
Yeah.
But we decided we wanted to commit our lives to working with organizations and companies committed to making a difference in the world. So we decided that if we were going to put all of our time, our energy, our resources, our life into something, it should be worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And we started looking around, and we wanted to work particularly with organizations committed to making a difference for the environment. And what we noticed is that there are many, many, many businesses and many entrepreneurs who do put caring first, but they don't necessarily have the funds or the resources to make it work. So really that's, you know, my why is wanting to have this model of cooperation and to have my life mean something inside of that, and particularly mean something in the realm of the environment.
Yeah, that's great. And so it kind of gives me a segue a little bit into, it's taken decades for corporates or corporate leaders, because companies don't act, people do, to realize that aligning with social impact, environmental impact, actually is good for economic impact. And it's good for attracting top talent, because that's where people want to go work, with people that do care, and so on. It's just good for business. So, so you've been engaged in, you call it cooperation, gathering people together for purpose, if you will, right? For social, like I said. So how would you define yourself? And like I always say, it's kind of like a push question, but how would you define yourself as one of the leaders who care?
How would I define myself as one of the leaders who care? Well, I'm somebody who puts caring first. It's not like we're building a business and then we better strap on some, good stuff at the end, a bit of greenwashing, a bit of love at the end of it. It actually originates from a company mission and a personal mission. So at World Tree, we've spent a lot of time over the last 18 months really digging into why we exist and what we're about. And then doing it on a personal level as well, and doing it on a personal level for all our team members. So there's a clarity for everyone about, what's World Tree up to. And World Tree's mission is that we educate, innovate, and elevate for the planet. That's our reason for existence. But then each of us has our own personal calling, like our own reason for being. And so we do the work to make sure that's connected. And I don't mean superficial work, because sometimes it's you have to dig a bit to like get in there and really figure it out for yourself. It's like, why am I getting up in the morning and doing this? Yeah.
That's good. Well, that aligns with your need since you've been a kid to get your hands dirty and stuff. So that's all without a doubt. And it seems it's also aligned with what you told me actually about these monks planting 27,000 trees, which is amazing. How did that start?
So one of the ways we work at World Tree, and one of the ways I think that we're different. So we put the caring and the mission first. And when I met Wendy Burton, who founded World Tree originally. And she was one of those struggling entrepreneurs who was like the company was not fulfilling what it really could fulfill. I said, well, if we took money out of the equation, which we can't in business, but if we could, let's take money out of the equation for a moment, what would you be doing with your business? Mm-hmm. And she said instantly, I would be giving the trees for free to farmers. The farmers are typically struggling. Poverty is really high in the farmers that I talk to and work with. We want to, if I really could do anything, I'd give the trees for free to the farmers. And that was the origins of this idea that, hold on a minute, we've got farmers. In this case, we work with lots of farmers. In this case, these monks who have land. They have a community of people who are willing to do the work to care for the trees. You don't necessarily have the resources to purchase the trees originally, nor the know-how about how to grow them over time, but they've certainly got the land and the will. And then here we have investors who love trees, but maybe can't plant 27,000 trees in their own backyard. And they're looking for something where they can make a difference, but they also want to invest. I mean, at the end of the day, we put the caring first, but if we can get the economics there and we can actually make money from doing the right thing, then we've got a real win. So that was really the backstory with the monks. And then we've been working all over, and we sent a team to Mexico to start talking there, and our team was greeted from the airplane. We met the Minister for the Environment, we met the local mayor. They're all like, this is amazing, we want it here in our community. They're supporting the farmers with grants. Mexico is a really fabulous philosophy right now for developing agroforestry for the reasons of the environment and economics. And from that, we got to meet these wonderful monks who are now planting our trees.
It's so aligns, and I'm preaching to the choir here with, how you started out with cooperation and how it touches so many aspects of life. We talked about the economic and the social, but social has multiple tentacles, and including the feeling you get from planting, the feeling you get from seeing it grow, not to mention the environmental aspects of it, which are incredible as well. The education for kids to do things like that. I mean, there's so many things, and it's basically well-being of a community. So yeah. It reminds me of, my grandparents had a lot of quotes, and I've been using some of my mother's quotes these days. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, what that means. But they would always say with a Russian accent, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing. And it wasn't a slogan, it wasn't a line. It's because of everything they went through that it was really important. So technology is speeding along. We have a pandemic, which we thought that was enough to handle. We got the tipping point of racial injustice right now as well. You were kind of talking about, in a way, like an awakening, your own personal awakening and other people's have, and now a lot of people have had a chance to think a little bit about what's important to them. So how do you see our awareness, what our awareness is going to look like with respect to work, with respect to play, with respect to community in the future?
So it's funny, the word awakening. So when we were working over the last 18 months on our vision, we actually used the words, there has been a profound awakening. People from diverse cultures, conditions, and lifestyles have come together in reciprocity and harmony. Mm-hmm. And we actually wrote that. And I remember when we were writing, we were like, well, how is this profound awakening how is that gonna happen? And if you kind of look back over the last 40 years, there has already been all of the foundations for that, for an awakening. I mean, if you look at the Richard Branson was a hippie he was like, origins is like he's a hippie that's become a businessman.
Yeah.
And we've had, we're more spiritually aware. There's like so many ways we've been having this gradual awakening, but for a profound awakening, I mean, who would have thought that it would be a pandemic that could shake us up so much and have us become so aware of our intimate connection with Mother Earth? I mean, we're just inseparable. So I wouldn't have predicted it, and I wouldn't have predicted that we as human beings could come together and get all the airplanes down and stop flying and stop going to conferences and doing all of those things that we do.
Well, who would have predicted that? Unfortunately, it took that to make us think a little bit that, I don't need to be at every conference. I don't need, and I remember joking with people when everything started and we were shut down and saying, man, there's a lot of birds here that sing, but I think they were singing opera when this thing was going on. And I swear they were saying, I don't know where those humans all are, but this is awesome.
Yes.
And you see these videos of the goats going into town and this and that, right, and whatever. And they're like, they don't know why, but it's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. There has been, you see all of those things. And I know that people are spending way more time, at home in their gardens. There's less need for buying new outfits because, hey, where are you going to go?
Yeah. So, sometimes we need to be forced. You mentioned Richard Branson. I'm not going to name drop like he's a friend, but there's an initiative that he started called 100% Human at Work that we're involved in. And I did get to meet him and had a chance to talk with him at the end of last year. And he brought up the thing. Do you remember Mark, when people used to say they're proud of where they worked? And I said, yeah, I've been talking about that too. It was a different era, a little bit different, but still, especially in the business I'm in, which is part of the executive search and talent, I don't hear that hardly at all. I might hear, I like the company, I like this, that, but the proud word doesn't necessarily come up all the time. And this is a segue into what I wanted to ask you about. how do you see the role, what I would call business leaders who care should play with their talent, which is for their financial well-being, but as well for their physical and mental well-being, and understanding that is actually going to be good for business and good for community.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because so much of this is just an inherited context. I mean, you know, we didn't invent this. We just kind of went straight into this world, and all our education systems is like this like movement that you just go onto the train. And I for sure, you know, I was at university in the late 80s, so I'm kind of, you know, that was when my educational time was. I got trained in to be a really good worker. And I am a really good worker. In fact, sort of if you just like could look at the Cathy DNA, it's like there isn't a problem that can't be solved by working hard.
Right, right.
And that's sort of the world that we've inherited. I didn't choose that. I didn't invent it. I didn't create it. So I have a friend who's an engineer who admitted to me that he saves up emails to send at 7 o'clock at night. So it looks like he's working at 7 o'clock in the evening because that's what's valued in his workplace. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of, you know, it's part of the cultural economic system, the grind of it, whereas what's valued is how hard you work, how many hours you put in. What's not valued is your fulfillment, your satisfaction, your joy, your well-being, the sense of creating something, inventing something new, or being part of something. And, you know, it doesn't take a rocket science to tell you that if you've got a team of people who are living that, they're bringing their calling to work and they're inside of a mission and a vision that they're aligned with and that they love. And they get home and they're excited to share about their day and they're fulfilled and juiced up by what they're doing. Then you've got happier, healthier, back to your grandparents, you've got healthier people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's, you're right, it's not rocket science, but it took a lot for us to get here, and decades. You know, I had a client 20 years ago that, to make a long story short, they were trying to figure out why we're not getting better talent. It was because there was young people from young families working there. They were stressed out that they would get their kids, all sorts of things going on. And then people started hearing it was a terrible place to work because all of that. So this is really making a long story short of discussions, but they built the daycare center at headquarters. And then we were able to actually represent them, even though we hadn't trademarked the term at that point, as leaders who care about their families. And people wanted to go work there after that.
Right. Yes. Yes. So, absolutely.
Again, not rocket science. So one last question on this part. So pretend I'm a graduate, high school, college, whatever. And I tell you, my girlfriend's pissed off at me because we didn't have prom. This is going, that going, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, and I come to you and say, what am I gonna do? What next? What do you tell me?
So it's really interesting that you put the question that way. You know, what do I do next? Because we are living in very unpredictable times in many ways. I mean, I think that this pandemic is just a dress rehearsal for what's coming, because we've got some serious issues that Mother Earth is going to come back and bite us with. I mean, that's what's predictable. I haven't got a crystal ball, but it's predictable. So we're going to be living in a world with a lot of uncertainty, more things like COVID that take us by surprise. We have to adapt. And the circumstances are not necessarily anything we can do anything about. But what we do have a say over is who we get to be in our circumstances. So your girlfriend may be pissed off. That's a circumstance. Let's pretend we can't change that. But you do get a say in who you get to be when your girlfriend's pissed off, or when you don't get the job you thought because everything's changed. And so I think it's really, really important right now that we go to work on ourselves. We find out what triggers us, what is it, what's there that we inherited from our parents or our culture or even our biology that we didn't have any say over. So when my girlfriend is pissed off, there is no longer a me present. I'm just a reaction. if you push my button and I react angry, that's how it is. Or if you're the sort of person that goes like all silent, that's how, like you've got, at that point, you're just a robot responding to an upset. So it's really important that we get underneath our own humanity about what makes us tick, and I'd be me personally, us personally, so that as we go into the future, we're actually present, inventing, creating, seeing new ways of being and acting that are not driven from the past, because the past has got very little useful to say about how we're going to deal with the future.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So I'm going to break up with her, and I'm going to what I really want to do. That's awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you participating.
Oh, this has been really enjoyable. Thank you, Mark.